Hey, been a little while. Um, I've got something today that I think you are going to find pretty interesting. First and foremost, let me welcome you to my office. I run IT for a career and tech ed center in central Michigan. I've had this job for a couple of years now, and I have a good place now to display a lot of my old technology stuff that I've kind of collected over the years. But there's one piece in particular right here that I think you guys are going to find pretty interesting. So let me take you over here and let's take a look at this, because as cool as this stuff is, this is my prized possession. This is a genuine piece of computer history that I think you guys are going to find really cool. So this is my Apple II. Apple IIs are very cool for a number of reasons, but this one in particular is extremely cool because if you notice, there's no plus, E, C, anything after this Apple II. It just says Apple II, and that is because this is an original Apple II, non-plus Apple II, and not only is this an original Apple II, this is a revision 0 Apple II, an original from 1977. These are extremely rare, extremely hard to find, and I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of backstory on how I came by this and tell you a little bit about it. So I got that old monitor off. I just wanted to give you a little look around this thing. I have not touched this in terms of cleaning it, trying to get any of this old adhesive stuff off of here. This is all exactly how I got it. Now, I got this from a very good friend of mine, one of my next door neighbors, growing up. He was in the engineering department at Central Michigan University back in the 70s and 80s. And the story he gave me is that one of his friends at the time, one of his buddies, who was a professor of, I think, engineering or computer science or something, owed him some money. And as payment, he gave him this new computer that he had bought back in 1977. I got the computer exactly like this from him after being brought over to his house a number of times to kind of play with it, just because, to him, this was just a cool old piece of retro tech. So he took me over there. We played with it a little bit. He showed me all the documentation and software and stuff that he still had. Let me take you over to my tech wall here. This is all stuff that he had still laying around. In addition to these up here, the dot matrix printer up there, and then these 5 1/4 inch floppy drives. So he pulls out a couple of these bad boys. I want to make sure I have the right one. Let me see. AppleSoft, Apple II. So this is the original Apple II Basic Programming Manual. I believe this is the programming manual for Integer Basic, which would have been the language that would have come on this computer. Integer Basic is the language that was included on the original Apple I computer, and only these earliest versions of the Apple II came with Integer Basic. It was later replaced by AppleSoft Basic, which is this other one here. AppleSoft Basic. It's called AppleSoft because AppleSoft Basic was actually written by Microsoft for Apple back in the 70s for use on their Apple II systems. So this computer here has the original Integer Basic ROM on it, and there's actually a card in here that allows me to switch between the original Integer Basic, which was written by Steve Wozniak for these systems, and then I can flip the switch and switch over to AppleSoft Basic and get to what is arguably the more useful of the two languages, because there's quite a bit more software written for AppleSoft Basic, and it's a little bit more complete of a language. So let's get in here and crack this thing open, and I want to show you. This top panel just pops right off. I want to show you the interior of this machine so you can see just how complete this thing is. So let's get in here. Extremely clean, a little dusty obviously, but one thing I want you to note here, this little guy, this row up here, Apple Computer Inc., and there should be a little badge in there hiding somewhere that says 1977. So it is an original Revision Zero Apple II. It's got what looks to be a replaced power supply. These were known for exploding, basically, just kind of self-destructing, the original silver power supplies. And this was not a museum piece at the time. You know, this was used by a person in the engineering department at CMU, and he carted it around in this bag, which I do have the original bag, I believe, that it came with, or came in, I'm not exactly sure. Notice no bite taken out of the apple yet. As I understand it, these are kind of rare, but I'll come back to that because there's some cool stuff over there too. But so this thing, like I said, it was used, you know, so when stuff went wrong and needed to be replaced, it was replaced. But as far as I know, other than this guy right here, and unfortunately this little memory block here, none of this was ever really replaced. So it's all original. So we have this card here with the toggle switch on it that lets me switch between AppleSoft Basic and Integer Basic. And then I have this card here. This is my disk controller card, which we will come back to. But another thing I wanted to show you that kind of, it adds to the intrigue of this particular device, is if we tilt this up here, I can show you, if we tilt it up very carefully, that is, I can show you the serial number on this bad boy, 0446. So as I understand it, this is Apple II number 446. This is the 446th Apple II to be built and sold, which makes this a very early serial number for these. Not only is this a very early serial number for a completed Apple II system, but actually if we bring you up in here, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see it on the camera here, but up in that corner, you can see, hopefully, there is a serial number written on the logic board up there in that corner, and it's written in Sharpie. I believe it is number 689, which is kind of interesting because the very earliest systems here would have been made simultaneously as standalone boards that you could buy, just standalone Apple II boards, just like the Apple I was sold. So you could buy a standalone board and put your own keyboard, case, monitor, all of that stuff with it. And like I say, that is how the Apple I was sold. But then, of course, you could also buy the completed system, which is what happened here. I believe this was purchased in, I think, September of 1977, and I believe they were released originally in April of 1977. So this is a very early example. And to my surprise, when, you know, we busted it out, everything works. It turns on. I showed you at the very beginning, it was running a piece of software that I kind of put together using some notes from some other people. But I want to get this kind of put back together for a minute. and show you this thing in action, because it is really amazing that after, since 1977, this thing basically has been trucking along. I mean, throughout the 70s and 80s, as far as I know, this thing was used pretty heavily. I have a lot of software to prove it on those 5¼ inch floppies over there, but it still works. Everything still works. I didn't have to do, the only thing that I had to take care of to get this thing really in fully working order is this little guy right here is a removable memory block. And what these guys are for is, the original Apple IIs only came with 4K of RAM. Now, 4K of RAM is enough to run some really basic programs. Basic in all caps, not just the word basic, but it's not really enough to run anything more complex. So what you could do is order these in multiple memory configurations. This is our little memory area, our RAM area, and these slots would have been left empty, and you would use these memory blocks. Basically, these are just jumper wires inside of these blocks to tell the board what areas of RAM were filled, so that it would know where to store stuff to run your software. Later on, because why would you ever want to use less RAM, these were just soldered to the board. These were just jumper wires that were part of the board. You couldn't remove them. But these early versions of the board, these were removable. So things were kind of being a little temperamental. Some software would work, some wouldn't work. And in doing research, it seemed to be kind of a memory address problem, or something to do with memory. And so I kind of was playing around with these RAM chips, pulling them out, cleaning them, seeing if anything was wrong. And that center one, that center memory block, actually had a broken pin that was bent over. So someone at some point, I would assume my neighbor, pulled that chip out, and when he put it back in, he actually bent that pin over, which could very well be why this computer was stuck in storage. Like, it could be that that's why he stopped using it, was that it was doing some weird stuff. But I actually found, in the short term, I actually stuck some wires in there to test that was the problem, and it turned out to fix the problem. So I found a guy on eBay who makes these 16K memory blocks. They're very basic. They just, like I said, they're just jumper wires. And I stuck it in there, and now it works flawlessly. So let me get this thing put back together, and I will load up some software, and we can see this thing in action. In case you're wondering, the way that I'm getting this to work, because obviously my 5¼ inch floppy drives are over there, they don't work 100% of the time. They're a little bit unreliable. So I have a more modern solution for this. As you can see, I've got my disk controller card here hooked up, and there is a ribbon cable coming out of it. The ribbon cable actually connects to this little guy here, which is a floppy emu. These are a pretty sweet little device. It's just a board that takes a micro SD card, and basically it translates the micro SD card into a format that these original Apple II devices, and actually, the older Macintosh devices also, can read. So I can store software to this and load it on here, or even write software to this from the Apple II, and it just treats it like a floppy drive, or like a floppy disk. So that's what we're going to be reading software off of. So let me get this put back together, and we can see this thing in action here. All right, so I have this put back together, but there's one thing I wanted to get to before I turn this thing on, actually. Something that I found in this bag. while I was kind of first taking this out and learning about it, looking up, how old they are, how rare they are, that kind of thing. I actually found in here a copy, a carbon copy, an actual carbon, physical carbon copy of the original bill of sale. So this was originally purchased by Dr. Russell Morey in from Team Electronics, which looks like it is in Springfield, Illinois. It was purchased on September 30th of 1977 for $1,257.10, which would have been a ton of money back in 1977. So I thought this was incredibly cool. It really it tracks basically the entire history of this computer from the original owner through my neighbor who had it for so many years. So I thought that was pretty cool. But let's get this thing started up here, and I will show you this computer in action. I'm going to start it up in AppleSoft Basic mode because that is what I have my software saved with. I wrote it in AppleSoft, and I have it stored in AppleSoft. I actually don't think that Integer Basic is capable of interacting with the disk drives. At the time, the AppleSoft software, the Integer Basic stuff, would have been stored on these cassette tapes, which this you can see is a checkbook program written in Integer Basic, and you only need 16K of RAM to run it, which I think is pretty cool. So this would have come with the computer, and this would have been software written by Apple for the Apple II, and you would hook this into a cassette deck, and the cassette deck would plug directly into the back of the Apple II, and you would just play the tape, and it would load the software in and run it. It was pretty slow method of loading software, but it worked well for a lot of years, so it was always an option. But when AppleSoft Basic came around, people realized that you needed to be able to store your software in a convenient way, and I think at the time an 8-inch floppy would have been, at the earliest points of the Apple II and the Apple I, an 8-inch floppy would have been kind of your only option. But they had the 5.25-inch floppies came out, and the disk drives got cheap-ish. I think the disk 2 drives, the ones that Apple made for the Apple II, were sometime in like 1978, 1979. So a couple of years after this computer came out is when you would have been able to get your hands on one of those. But let's get this thing started up. There's just a little switch at the back here, and you flip it on, and let's see if it makes your telltale boop sound that things are working properly. Yep. You can see this old monitor has some trouble. This is just a monitor I found in a closet here, but I thought it was just perfect. It came out of our machine trades program, hooked up to an old CNC machine or something, but it's monochrome green. I just thought it was perfect. So now one thing you might notice turning this on, if you've ever seen an Apple II before, is typically with the newer versions of the Apple II, when you turn an Apple II on, you get the little Apple II logo up here, or text up here, and it just sits and waits for a disk to be inserted for it to boot from. Now, like I said, this is an early version of not only the Apple II, but also even AppleSoft Basic. The version of AppleSoft Basic that is on this, that I think is actually on that card, is an early version before the auto boot version of the ROMs were available. So this does not auto boot to whatever floppy disk you're in, and actually doesn't even boot right into BASIC. It loads into monitor mode, which monitor mode is a tool that's built in basically so you can test your memory. You can literally look directly at the memory and see what values are stored in memory. So that's kind of cool that most of these old Apple IIs don't just boot directly to monitor mode. They go past monitor mode, go right to to basic. But so in order to get to basic on this thing, you just have to hit Control B and then hit return. And you see I get my little cursor here. And that means I'm in integer basic. So a couple of commands that I know from, or not integer basic, I'm sorry, AppleSoft Basic. One of the commands I know for AppleSoft Basic is home. If I hit that, it's going to clear the screen. And now I've got my blinking cursor and I can do fun stuff in Basic. Now, in order to get to the floppy emu, or in if I had my physical drives hooked up to get to my drives, what I would need to do is tell the computer, hey, that card that's in slot 6, you need to go talk to that card and then interact with the stuff that's plugged into the card. So the command to do that would be PR and then pound sign 6. There's some debate over what this command actually stands for. I don't know what the PR stands for, but basically this command just says, hey, slot 6, which is where my floppy controller card is, slot 6, talk to that card, interact with the stuff that's hooked up to it. So type that command in, hit return. You're going to see DOS 3.3. DOS stands for Disk Operating System, and that would have been a very, very, very early version of DOS that lives basically on that floppy controller card, and it is the software that can actually communicate with the floppy disks that would store your software. So what you're looking at here is the hello program that you would write and put on basically every floppy disk you made. You would have a little program that would just say hello, and it lives right at the beginning sectors of the floppy disks. And it's just a little message that says hi, and basically what is on that floppy disk is what it's supposed to be. So the virtual floppy disk that I created for just writing my software on and sticking stuff on there, you can make many. You can load up actual software that is stored in disk form that you can get from archives online, but I just made a blank one and coded my own stuff. So this is my hello program that just says, hello, I'm an original revision 0 Apple II. Enter the catalog command to view the available programs, then load your desired program by typing load and then the name of the program and pressing the return key, and then you can run it by typing the run command. So that's what we're going to do here. So let me type this in. Let's type in catalog and see what software I have on here. I do have some programs on here, the hello program. So actually, if I can just load this hello program in here. So you just type load and then the name of the program. Let's load the hello program. And I'll list that program so you can see what it looks like. Very basic, no pun intended. Just, the first command. The way that basic works is it just is essentially a list of commands, and it runs them in order. An interesting thing with basic is you actually have to write out your own line numbers. So before each command, you actually have to type this number out and then type the command out, and then it knows what order to do stuff in. But you can see here, all it does is that home command, it clears the screen, and then it prints all that stuff, and that's all it does. So let's clear the screen again. Let's see what else we have on here. One of the programs that I made on here just for my own learning experience, just to see if I could actually kind of code something in BASIC that would have potentially been something that someone might have done at the time. I made this program here called Account Gen. Now, like I said, I run IT for this tech center here, as you can see by my super cluttered IT professional office. And one thing that I have to manage all the time is user accounts and user passwords. So I thought, okay, well, it might be kind of fun if we have a new student who needs an account, who has to come down here and talk to me about getting an account. I can just have them come over to this old Apple II and run a little program, it will create their account information for them, and then I just have to input it in the systems. So this is this sheet here is actually a very early version of that program, but that is what a basic program looks like. So let's load the account gen program. Type that in. Oh man, that keyboard just, what a satisfying noise that makes. So let's load the account gen program and let's run it. Okay, welcome to the GI Tech account generator. GI Tech is the name of the program that I work for. What is your first name? Let's say we got somebody named John. What is your last name? Smith. Okay, hi John Smith. In which year will you graduate? If you are staff, leave blank. Let's say this student is going to graduate in 2027. So we're going to say 2027, the 7 key. Some of these keys, they do repeats. So the keyboard could use some cleaning, but like I said, I haven't done that because things are a little bit finicky with that. But so let's actually go back and we'll clear this out so I don't have repeats. Let's say 2026, just so it works a little more cleanly. So it's going to generate the account details. This is actually just something I have it do. It doesn't take that long to generate. I just have it do this because it looks fancier. But so details generated. Your new GI Tech username is jsmith26@gitech.net. Your new GI Tech password is CTE60194! Would you like to generate another? No, I don't need to do that right now, so I'll just hit no. And it says no problem, bye-bye, and the program ends. So as you can see, this old thing, this old genuine piece of computer history, this is the monitor doing this. This is not the Apple II. This old piece of computer history still works flawlessly, and I thought it would be relevant to share this with you guys because this is just not something that you run across very often. There are a lot of Apple IIs out there. There are not a lot of these Apple IIs out there. So I just thought it would be prudent to share this with you guys because just to have it here for myself and kind of play around with it just didn't seem right given what a significant piece of computer history this is. One more thing I wanted to note is I do know how rare these are. I know how valuable this computer is. I have had a number of offers on this, some of them, most of them in the 5-digit range, but it was kind of a promise that I made to my neighbor who let me have this, that I would not sell it because it's such a significant piece of computer history. After I did some research on it and shared with him how what a significant piece of computer history this was, we kind of made the agreement that I wouldn't sell it. I'd keep it, which I wouldn't anyway, because it's so it's such a important, critical piece of computer history. I wouldn't do that anyway. I don't think I could ever get rid of this. If I ever do get rid of it, it's going to a museum somewhere where people can see it in a proper setting. But I would never just sell this. So please don't reach out to me asking to buy this. If you have questions about it or information about it, leave it in the comments. I'm happy to read those comments, answer any questions, or just learn something new about this that I didn't know. But please don't reach out asking to purchase this device. It's not something I'm interested in getting rid of, so I would appreciate that. But other than that, hopefully you found this interesting. Hopefully you found it informative. Like I said, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'm more than happy to answer those questions, and I will see you guys in the next video.